Good morning, Mango Nation! Today I bring you a story that spans across time, one that began in the wild west of early YouTube and that has escalated and continued to this very day, from raging to stalking to lost legal battles. This is the story of Spax3.
And if you like to say a word to the crowd, yes, if you have a side to tell, do it now, cause the people are leaving. They're all going home, you're up on the stage and you're all alone. They were drawn to the sound of the crash and the bangs and the drums and guitars. A good guy saying, it's not you, it's me. Wait, that's wrong. It's not me, it's you. Everybody now. It's not me, it's you.
Before I start this video, I've got two things to say. First of all, anyone with a brain would know that this video is fair use, and I will escalate a strike to court if I need to. Second, for legal reasons, everything in this is alleged from a variety of people, although court records and admissions from Spax himself make a lot of things fairly cut and dry regardless. Please do not reach out to or pester anyone in this video, and sources will be linked in the description. In the early 2000s when YouTube began, there was no production value, no corporate slop, no YouTube vocation. YouTube was simply a place to put your thoughts, feelings, and hobbies. It didn't take nearly as much to become a person of interest because there just weren't as many people to compete with. This was the landscape Spax came into. Like many YouTuber wannabes at the time, Spax was an AVGN clone. I'm sure most of you watching are very well aware of who the angry video game nerd is, so I'll explain no further. He named his review channel Cartoon Network ASN, which he said stood for Alex Ed Show Network. Obviously, Spax had no actual affiliation with CN, and was just a cartoon fanboy trying to align himself with a more well-branded entity in order to gain attention.
Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and a Nintendo Wii.
Wow, great audio mixing you've got there, bud. And that's coming from me. Now, as I previously mentioned, becoming a notable person on YouTube was a lot easier back in the day, and with people itching for more content like AVGN, even if just a cheap knockoff, Spax actually managed to gain himself a fan base. Ranting about everything and anything alongside characters like the Noid, yes, as in like the Domino's pizza mascot, in some universe of pure, unfiltered mental illness of his creation. Although Spax definitely had some loyal fans, the little fame he had went to his head, and he often tended to exaggerate his relevance. In 2010, Spax told everyone he was invited to E3 as a guest, and invited some friends to come join him. Turns out, Spax ended up paying to get in, and the friends weren't able to get in at all, since they, weren't actually with a guest. So what does Spax do? He ditches them at the entrance so he can meet his hero, James Rolfe, the AVGN, and ramble about his channel to James in hopes that they can become friends or something. With friends like that, who needs enemies, right? There was one consistent point of focus for Spax's anger: Jason Griffith. If you know anything about Sonic fans, then you know they're some of the most nitpicky people on the planet. And I say this as a Sonic fan myself. However, most Sonic fans keep their anger to occasional YouTube rants and or unhinged Twitter ramblings, and are overall pretty harmless other than potentially annoying others. Spax definitely took things far past this. For those of you unaware, Jason Griffith is one of the voice actors for Sonic the Hedgehog, a fact that is probably the bane of Spax's entire existence. That's it, by the way. That's the crime that Griffith committed to earn this visceral hatred from Spax. When it was announced that Griffith would voice Sonic, Spax decided the, normal and well-adjusted response would be to spread posters around his city, pleading for randos to boycott 4Kids until they fired him.
I am organizing a boycott of Sonic the Hedgehog / Next Gen Sonic / Sonic 2006 if Jason Griffith is going to be voicing Sonic in it. Many have come on board for this in both the United States and the UK, and I want the readers who are hardcore Sonic fans who care about the characters to join in. And don't worry, this is not illegal, so you can't get in trouble. This boycott involves posting up flyers on phone poles, lampposts, and the brick / stone walls of video game selling stores. Here are the flyers. Download them and print them from your Paint / image program with the printer setting to fit to page. For more information, IM me or email me at. There is another step to this protest, however it is a little more intense: picketing your nearest video game store on the release of Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm going to be doing it at the near Best Buy, as are a few others. This is not illegal as long as you don't go inside the store. However, since this one is a bigger, you don't have to do this step if you don't want to, and you can just post the flyers around town as mentioned. I have even called Sega VP Scott Steinberg and warned him of this, and I will be calling every 2 weeks until I can get him to confirm that we will get what we want. This is Sonic's 15th anniversary. It should be special for all the fans. To contact me about about this for more information, my net contact information is on the flyers.
As you can surely guess, this was about as effective as your run-of-the-mill Twitter boycott at best, and pretty much just fell upon deaf ears. Now, we may not have the context for some of these gripes, but I feel like this post illustrates that even dating back to 2009, Spax' friends were just kind of fed up and leaving for a variety of reasons.
I can't believe it. Spax3 got my YouTube account banned because he can't take a fucking joke. I just made a video against his stupid actions removing videos because they hurt his feelings. Not only did my video get removed, I got fucking banned! Thanks to you, Spax, Transformers The Legend Reborn might never get off the ground. I wasn't as sore as I used to be before, but now, I'm just pissed. Sorry, Guardian Earth, Sponge, Kaiser, and anyone else involved in the project. I'm in a big rut. I just got my account closed by the biggest crybaby on YouTube.
So, Spax has falsely struck someone and gotten their YouTube channel removed. We will touch more on Spax' abuse of the copyright system later in this video, so let's just get back to Spax' parasocial hatred of Griffith. As Spax began to lose friends and loyal followers due to this increasing obsession with him, his bitterness compounded. On top of his fruitless attempts to get him fired, Spax would go as far as to email the voice actor death threats, allegedly. He often also spoke openly about his violent fantasies as well. In fact, Spax' antics were so ridiculous that even Chris Chan, of all people, said he went too far.
So, you reckon that somebody you started making, petitions to have him fired and that is a bit over the top, really? I mean, would you say that's gone a bit far, or?
Yeah, probably. Sounded like it was going a bit far, yeah.
Oh, that's good. So, yes. So, yeah, it's a guy called Spax3. Have you ever heard of him?
I'm sorry, that's 3?
Spax, S-P-A-X 3.
Oh, Spax. No, I never heard that one.
Ah, yes, it's a guy, yes. He actually has fantasies about Creed the Rabbit as well. So I don't know if you know about that.
Oh. Huh. Is this like a villain character, this Spax?
No, he's a real person. He's a real person. He doesn't like people saying that. He likes rabbits. He gets very upset about it. But yeah, he says he has, there's a big thing on I think there's loads of trolls on ED who keep saying that he likes having sex with a rabbit.
Huh.
He wants to have sex with a 6-year-old rabbit. So, do you find that disgusting at all?
Well, I mean, that's his decision, but I personally do not promote bestiality. As a matter of fact, I'm against it, and the Bible is against it.
So Spax pretty much despises the voices of Sonic X, so how do we suppose he attempts to remedy the situation? By redubbing the episodes with himself as Sonic, of course.
Is this the power of the Chaos Emeralds?
I'm the captain. I'm called High West. Sorry, that was a long introduction. Now things will be fast.
Watch out, voice acting industry, a new prodigy is breaking into the scene. Now, I find it pretty ironic that Spax felt okay redubbing the show, given his takes on copyright law. For the record, I have no qualms with redubs, parodies, reactions, or what have you. I'm about as pro fair use as you can possibly get. When I started making this script, the #1 thing I was warned of by other YouTubers was that Spax would falsely DMCA my channel. Honestly, I dare him to. I'm currently in university studying copyright law, and while I'm not entirely a lawyer yet, I would love nothing more than to get some nice practice and wipe the floor with someone like Spax in a courtroom. Spax's idea of copyright infringement is that if you use a single frame of his video or a single photo of his face, or even mention his name, that you are infringing on his copyright. I wish I was kidding. This delusion, paired with the quickly expanding number of videos mocking him popping up, was bound to create the never-ending cycle of being criticized and then trying to silence said criticism that is still in motion today. Spax's lawyer is his own mother, by the way, which, Spax cringe aside, the mother doesn't necessarily seem to be, all there herself. I mean, to be fair, no self-respecting lawyer would represent someone like Spax to begin with. If Spax manages to get a hold of your address, he'll send you threatening legal notes, which hold absolutely zero weight, but are still hilarious to receive. Unlike people like Mundane Matt, who would come up with excuses and lies to try their best to pretend like they weren't the ones to issue the strikes, Spax proudly boasted his strikes.
Dude, I do know some things in the legal system. What I'm doing isn't really legal. Well, actually, it's more of a misdemeanor than a whatever.
This is what Spax had to say on the matter.
I'm not reporting them. I hired someone else to do the legal stuff for me. And don't talk to me about this stuff. I live with a lawyer, so I know more about legal stuff than anyone. I run a business now. This is how things work, and it's been causing problems despite ignoring it. Leave me alone.
Spax even went as far as to defend Viacom and their vicious abuse of the copyright system. Honestly, defending Viacom is pretty vile because they're a massive reason that the YouTube copyright system is the disgusting mess it is today. So now that we've eased into the topic of legal matters, I have to say it really only escalates from here. On top of the false copyright strike, Spax has threatened to sue people for a variety of reasons. One story that sticks out to me is that of some Manic 1, someone who wanted to make a Sonic fan film. Spax, of course, being as opinionated as he was, auditioned for the voice acting role of Sonic. However, Manic did not think Spax was good enough to voice Sonic, which I can't say I disagree with there.
The sky ain't nice the same. The stars, the moon.
Apparently, though, Manic says that on top of the lack of talent, Spax just wasn't committed. Instead of working on the project, he would spend all of his time watching anime and playing video games. Spax was given multiple chances at the role, but simply wasn't good enough, so Manic went with one of Spax's friends. I'm going to play a clip for you really quick of Spax discussing this.
Now let me go on to the movie director, Richard. As I've said and will say again, he is a liar. He did mistreat me, lie to me, trick me, and abuse me. And I don't care how far he fired Wizwar either, which I think is because Wizwar is a close friend of mine. If he wanted to replace me as Sonic in this project, that's fine. He could just tell me right away that he felt I didn't fit his role of Sonic, or his vision of Sonic. And if he wanted to replace me, that's fine. I would have tried to help him find a new actor, and I probably would have still tried to help him with the project. But instead, he decided to lie about it, and he decided to just trick me for a few days, trying to make me not feel bad. But that means I just did a lot of work for him for nothing. And I also found out that he probably didn't want me in the project altogether. Well, if he had a good legit reason, and it was a fair one, then fine. He could have told me that, and I would have just left. But that's not what happened. He mistreated me. I felt robbed, especially since I gave up a job on a website just so I could help him.
Okay, so I don't buy this at all. Who is giving up a job to go work on some Sonic the Hedgehog fan film for free? So you're probably thinking, okay, this is just gonna be another internet beef, right? Well, no, of course it's not. Spax then threatens to sue Manic. He threatens to sue this guy over not getting a voice role in an unpaid Sonic the Hedgehog fan film. Just let that sink in really quick. The amount of egomania required to even have the idea of a lawsuit cross your mind, let alone actually trying to go through with it. Now, this is bad enough as it is, but oh boy, does it get worse. Now, I want to make note that Spax at this time was 23 years old, which is actually my age right now. Apparently some 13-year-old who was, for God knows what reason, also working on that film, made a video talking about why Spax was kicked off the project for, the reasons that I just mentioned. It didn't matter that this kid was 13. Spax was on the offensive, and he was ready to go all in. And by all in, I mean he somehow managed to get his hands on this child's docs and have his own mother call this kid's mom and threaten them. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you ever need to get your mom to come defend you on the internet, you've lost. Give up. There's no recovering from that. Just take the L, shut up, and move on. Spax then spoke on this in a later video.
I didn't sue anyone. And I've only threatened to sue one person recently. And that was that movie director. I did not threaten to sue the kid. All that was said to her was what she did was suable. But I didn't try to sue her. I wasn't going to even try to do it. Really. If I'm going to sue someone, I'll sue an adult, and only if it's really, really, really necessary. I mean, look, certain parody videos I don't mind, but this sue thing, it's retarded. I've only threatened to sue one person who actually deserved it. Luckily, it didn't have to come to that. Here's what happened. To try to make a peaceful resolution, My mom, whom I've mentioned before, I help nurse, talked to the kid's mom, because I figured that would be it would be a good peaceful way to settle things. A talk between parents. My mom is the one who said what the kid did was suable. She wasn't trying to sue the kid. She was just alerting her mom. Okay? So why don't you drop this shit and get your facts straight before you claim anything. There was actually a time where I was so stressed out that the thought of doing something horrible to the kid crossed my mind, which did involve a lawsuit, but I realized that was over the line. A lot of people have this when they're stressed.
Okay, so this is essentially an admission to both calling the 13-year-old and threatening to sue Manic. On top of this, even if Spax is telling the truth here, he's entirely wrong for a plethora of reasons. He has no grounds to sue either person and could actually potentially get in legal trouble himself for harassing a 13-year-old. And now for the meat of this video. Something that hasn't really been discussed as much as it should have been with Spax, his own legal troubles. Now, I actually have myself here a copy of every single one of the documents pertaining to Spax's legal case, and I will say that they do cost money to access, but I will link them in the description, so that if anybody wants to go check them out, you're free to do so as well. And I'll get into those once I tell the story itself. In addition to the resume of chaos and malice we've built up thus far in the video, it's time to talk about Spax's stalker arc. I say arc, but realistically the stalking has been going on for more than a decade now. The victim of this situation is none other than Lizzy Freeman. Yeah, like as in Pomni's voice actor from The Amazing Digital Circus. Now, before I get into this segment, and like I said earlier, this applies to all segments, but I just want to reiterate, please do not pester the victims for more information or statements. I am linking the sources in the description. They have been through enough, leave them be. The information I'm about to share was entrusted to me by one of Lizzy's friends who have helped me write this section so that I have as accurate of information as possible. In 2013, Spax met Lizzy at a My Little Pony convention called Everfree. The first meeting was fine and they continued to talk online as Spax was looking to hire voice actors. Since this was all going fine, they decided to split a room for BabsCon 2013. This is when problems began to arise. Immediately, Spax began shoving a camera in her face without asking, and she asked him to stop, and to his credit, he did. However, other strange but small behaviors from Spax eventually began to compound and leave Lizzy feeling uncomfortable. Keep in mind, these two had a business relationship, not a friendship. Lizzy went off to hang out with her actual friends at one point, and Spax spammed her with calls and texts, which is incredibly unprofessional and, of course, stressful. Later that evening, Lizzy and her friends went down to the pool, and Spax happened to be there as well. They tried to be friendly with him, but felt he was giving off some unpleasant vibes. If you wanted to be charitable, you could say, hey, maybe he was just awkward, but regardless, everyone still did feel uncomfortable. Eventually, Spax asked if Lizzy would rather room with her friends, and while she hesitated at first, she eventually was like, well, yeah, I do know them better, so I guess that makes sense. However, when Lizzy finally accepted Spax's offer, he freaked out and began to berate her over the phone as she quickly packed her things. Lizzy did the best to defuse the situation and get out of there calmly. The following day, one of Lizzy's friends got an anonymous message that came across as very threatening towards Lizzy. Due to information in the message, it was very clear it was someone currently at the convention. Now, I'm not going to say this was or wasn't Spax, we have no way of knowing that, but in that moment, with the night before still fresh in her mind, Lizzy made the assumption that it was. Validating this in a way, Spax would continue to spam her with vitriolic messages. He acted entitled to her time and attention and demanded apologies for his imagined neglect. Spax has a complex where he is incapable of being viewed in a negative light if he thinks his intentions were pure. If he makes someone uncomfortable, instead of apologizing and talking things out, he puts all of the blame on the person being upset. Since then, he began labeling the friend group with words like abusers, false accusers, entitled, and so on. The friend group and Lizzy decided to simply ignore him and move on. That is until 8 years later in 2021, when Spax finds comfort in a new show called SMG4, which he has claimed saved his life. The issue here is that Lizzy is a voice actor on the show, and we all know how strongly Spax feels about voice actors, so you can kind of see where this is going. Spax then began claiming Lizzy's involvement made him physically ill and vomit, which, like, holy shit. The Parasocialism is crazy. Mind you, Lizzy had had no contact with Spax for nearly a decade at this point, and had likely forgotten he existed outside of being a weirdo she met at a con once. Spax would then obsessively attempt to re-establish contact and fix things, and demanded that Lizzy give him the time of day. Lizzy, of course, had better things to do with her time than give in to the deranged ramblings of a parasocial burnout, so she simply continued to ignore him. Spax then went on to publicly slander Lizzy under her socials, saying she abused him and whatnot, and even got his friends to do the same until things escalated so far that Lizzy broke down and spoke to him. Spax claims Lizzy took no accountability, which, to be fair, thus far Lizzy has done absolutely nothing wrong to my knowledge, and sure was a lot nicer than I would have been. But Lizzy tried her best to see things from his perspective and be apologetic in hopes of diffusing things. Unsurprisingly, nothing gets resolved. Like he did with Griffith, Spax would demand she be fired for her voice roles, but also believe she should be forced to do free voice work for him, which is just an insane double standard there. Lizzy left her role on SMG4 at one point a while later for completely unrelated reasons, but you think Spax would be happy nonetheless, right? After all, this is what he had spent years upon years begging for. But no, this is Spax we're talking about. This isn't someone capable of seeing reason. Instead, he continued to stalk and slander her. After constant harassment, stalking, and threats, Lizzy decided it was time to file a restraining order. Lizzy's only goal with this restraining order was to be left the fuck alone, which is all she'd been asking for an entire decade at this point. Even to this day, Lizzy hasn't posted anything about Spax publicly, which, once again, she is so much nicer than I would have ever been. Spax freaked out once the court ordered him to, you know, not slander Lizzy anymore, and had a full-on meltdown on a VTuber stream about it, which we'll get to later. Spax was incredibly unprofessional and constantly violates the court terms of not shutting up about Lizzy, telling everyone in VA servers to avoid her, posting old photos of her, and slandering her, and after a court date in 2023, an official restraining order was issued for 18 months. If he were to post or initiate contact again after 18 months, the order could be renewed pretty easily. Now, Lizzy is far from the only person to have issues like this with Spax, and several Google Docs have actually been written. I've also been in contact with those who wrote the Google Docs for clarification. Once again, please leave everyone be. So, Dwayne's document is technically a response to a document written by Spax, which I have opted to not read in full due to it being 21 pages of insane waffling and a ton of random who cares Discord drama with no allegations other than, like, Dwayne was a shitty friend, I guess. But I will sum up the document for you because the stuff he talks about is actually hilarious. Now, I will link the document in full for transparency's sake in the description, and I recommend checking it out if you want to see the just weirdness that it is. Yeah, so here's the summary of this. Spax does things like comparing Dwayne to Trump, for some reason, whining about their past relationships. This is like several pages of just going over their dating history, and judging them for moving on too fast. Complaining about their mom, because, you know, Dwayne was a minor during a lot of this. Spax doesn't like Dwayne's mom because she's protective of Dwayne. Saying Dwayne is evil because they pirated video games. He goes on a rant about Lolicon for a page or so. He spends maybe 5 or 6 pages ranting about drama that revolved around adding the Pokecord bot to a Discord server. I wish I was kidding. He admits to cutting himself and then sending them pictures of that during an argument. He freaks out over a Facebook status that reads, "Feeling relaxed, there will be nothing but positivity and good vibes." He then says he decided to up his self-harm game and cut his actual face during an argument and send a picture. He then gets mad that this freaks out Dwayne. He then admits to spamming their emails and even resorting to messaging them on PayPal after being blocked. He then accuses his friend of emotional cheating, which, in the case of a friendship, I have absolutely no idea what that even means. He then says Dwayne was going to use his picture for a fake gay dating profile on Facebook. He then states that this is why he refuses to respect their pronouns. Spax complains that when blocked, he used mutual friends to reach out to Dwayne, and he's mad that Dwayne then blocked those mutual friends. Says that he forced Dwayne into having a recorded conversation and that it didn't go well. And yeah, that's the summary of his document. It doesn't make him sound very good, does it? Anyways, let's read Dwayne's much better much more organized, much more normal response now. This is a written response to a document created by Ed Prince Stairs, previously known as Spax3 and currently going by the Twitter username PowerHoods, in which he misrepresents our relationship and downplays the harm that he caused me and many others. In this document, I will be telling my side of the story and clarifying areas that Ed intentionally left vague to save himself from humiliation. Content warning, mental abuse, self-harm, suicide, transphobia, homophobia, racism, gaslighting, stalking, and threats. Let me be clear. I do not wish anyone to go attack this person. I simply wish to set the record straight as he continues to spread harmful misinformation, twisting and exaggerating certain particular truths while neglecting or downplaying his own bad behavior in these situations. I am not a fan of cancel culture. I am not asking him to take accountability, simply want him to move on with his life and stop harassing me and others over 2-year-old drama. With that out of the way, here's my side of things. Section 1, from fan to friend. These first 2 months summarize how I met Ed and became a part of his website. You can skip these if you just want to see the rebuttal to his accusations. Back in the year 2007, I became a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog video game series after getting my PlayStation 2 and a copy of Sonic Heroes. As a Sonic fan, I'd go on YouTube and browse the various Sonic related videos, and that is when I first saw Ed, Spax3, and his review of Sonic and the Secret Rings, as well as his many other reviews. I was a preteen at the time and didn't fully understand the context of all the drama surrounding him, or the reputation he had online at the time. I just want to enjoy his videos, and I wish he'd preserve them for nostalgia's sake, instead of removing them from the internet, despite everything else I'm going to get into shortly. 2 years later, in 2009, I had just started high school. I became familiar with a program called Skype, which I could use to talk to fellow Sonic fans and sprite artists. On DeviantArt, I reached out to Ed and asked if he had Skype. I recall asking him why he didn't like Death Note. He added me straight away and we got to talking. He answered my questions in a friendly manner, and all I could think was, oh my gosh, a YouTuber I really enjoy is talking to me? Being 13 years old, I didn't have a full grasp on the toxic nature of parasocial relationships. That is not to say that making friends with YouTubers is bad, it's simply highlighting the power dynamic between a fan and their favorite creator, not to mention the age gap. At the time, I was just happy to get to know him. He was a fun friend to talk to, and he'd make funny jokes that made me laugh. I still look back on those days fondly. A few years later, at the age of 15, I was in an online relationship with my then boyfriend, Jonah, or Spike Hedgelion8. It was cliche teenage young love. Completely out of nowhere, Ed confessed having feelings for me. This was particularly annoying because I'd already had a bit of experience from people, mainly cis men, confessing feelings for me when I was already taken. Because of how much I cared for him, I wanted to let him down easily. Admittedly, I did low-key have feelings for him as well, but the age difference alone should have made it clear that this was a bad idea to pursue. I finally gathered the guts to tell Ed that I wanted to be with Jonah. I thought he'd take it well, but he ended up being really upset. Ultimately, I thought we could put it aside, but he continued having feelings for me and continued pressing the issue despite me making it clear that I did not want that kind of relationship with him. Ed would start writing me poems and sending me gifts, which I didn't mind at the time because I still viewed him as a friend. Other friends were starting to tell me that they thought Ed was being manipulative or controlling, and every single time, I would get defensive on Ed's behalf and defend his behavior. I looked up to him so much that I developed this idea that he was just misunderstood, and any warnings from other people were just people who weren't giving him a chance. This only got worse over time. 2. Love triangle. He would go on to recruit me for his website, the Game Toon Zone. I would do interviews with the My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic voice actors and writers with him. According to his post, he says I kept interrupting and wanting the spotlight. It was so long ago, but to my knowledge, this isn't true. I tried to be quiet and do the right thing by Ed, and if I messed up in some way during those interviews, it was not malicious. Ed interpreting mistakes as maliciousness would become a pattern. He always had high expectations of me, and it was becoming more demanding over time. This was all work I did as his friend, keep in mind, not paid work. I confess that sometimes I'd get frustrated and start crying and yelling, though this is when he was being especially harsh towards me, and I did not know how to take it. It's not an excuse, of course, but something clearly wasn't working. At one stage, he wanted to see me on webcam crying so he could know to feel bad for making me upset, which really messed with my head. I typically wanted to avoid webcam video for the longest time. I didn't like seeing myself talking on camera. In 2013, I was 17 years old, and my mom offered to go to San Francisco on a work-related trip. We took the offer to go to America. I finally got to meet Jonah, as well as my friends Chris and John. I also got to meet Ed, who first hugged me as soon as he saw me, and he had a camera with him. He'd take the camera everywhere during the trip, which made me anxious that my face was going to end up on his YouTube channel for the reasons I stated early. I was pretty insecure at the time. It was honestly very cool meeting Ed, and he was fun to be around. He was even there for me while I was sick and never left my side. However, at all times, my mom and her partner were keeping their eye on us. One might argue that this is sheltering, but they did this because they didn't want Ed to do anything bad to me. Well, the meet was fun. There were some awkward moments and some conflict. In 2014, when I turned 18, I was starting to go to TAFE and had a couple of new friends. Ed was starting to say I wasn't giving him much attention anymore. The spark between me and Jonah was starting to fade, so we broke it off on mutual terms, and I took this as an opportunity to break off the love triangle once and for all. Ed continued to act lovey-dovey, even though I made it absolutely clear I wasn't interested. May 29th, 2014, I fell in love with Scotty and we started dating. Ed did not take the news very well at all. In a fit of anger, he claimed I knew nothing about love. His reasoning, at the time, was that I supposedly rushed into a relationship with Scotty, but it was more likely that he hadn't moved on from his feelings for me. It was not his place or business to tell him how to live my life, but thankfully he would eventually move on and start dating Kristen. I thought things could finally be peaceful between us again. 3. Cracks begin to form. While we were still friends and still enjoyed each other's company, there were good and bad moments throughout. Looking at the big picture in retrospect, the various stresses, conflicts, and demands hadn't really changed much at all. When I came out as non-binary, he would still refer to me as a girl. When I tried to politely correct him, he'd say it didn't matter. If I pressed the issue, he'd claim that I was playing the victim. Whenever I expressed concerns about how he was treating me, and this was something he did a lot, it was starting to become very mentally taxing and exhausting. I walked on eggshells as an attempt not to upset him, but the tiniest things would set him off. He would get angry at me for being unavailable or wanting a break from him. I did all I could to be a good friend to him, even if it was to my own detriment, but it was never enough. If I couldn't cater to him 100% of the time, he'd get angry. It got to a point where I was simultaneously dealing with the stress of defending Ed to my friends who were trying to warn me about him, and also feeling mentally abused by Ed. I cried a lot. I was going through so much I couldn't deal with the entitlement anymore. Nothing I ever did was good enough, but I still tried to be his friend despite it all. 3 years ago, I was going through a breakup with the boyfriend I had after Scotty, who left me with major trauma. Ed, in his document, tried to use both these exes as a source, but not only are they irrelevant to his supposed grievances with me, but they're both unreliable, as one admits to just messing with Ed, and the other was himself rather abusive. Ed is grasping at straws to try and make me look bad, and you can make anyone look bad if you twist the facts the way Ed does. He's made an art of it, honestly. Anyway, I was so mentally spent by this stage, I was just trying to deal with the life one day at a time. Suddenly, he got mad at me because I bailed on a Nintendo Direct reaction stream that he wanted to record when I had a job at the time. This partially pushed me into quitting my job because I didn't want Ed to react that way again. He was leaving no room for a life outside of him. Now we get to the actual beginning of the drama Ed hasn't stopped talking about for the past 2 or 3 years. One day, I was taking a nap and I had woken up to a message from Ed. He was making an attempt at a joke saying, "I smell friend." Obviously an attempt to be quirky and cutesy. Still not quite awake yet. I just responded, "What? Why are you sniffing me?" That was it. That was the domino that set off a chain reaction, which I found myself repeatedly apologizing for this very day. He was pissed. He said it made him feel completely awkward and like he was being treated like a creep. He practically demanded an apology for his joke not landing. To recap, he made a joke, I, having just woke up, didn't get the joke right away, and that's why I'm so awful apparently. I posted a vague Facebook status venting about the incident which seemed to piss him off further, so I deleted the status as well. He would start spam calling me on Discord, demanding to speak with me when I just wanted to be left alone. Eventually, I accepted the call, despite knowing it was a bad idea after some intense arguing. I said, "All you ever do is hurt me." He didn't take this as an opportunity to reflect on his actions. He went the complete opposite route, because anytime anyone makes him feel like he did something bad, he finds a way to blame the other person and turn a non-issue into an issue. I genuinely did try to show in every possible way that I was sorry. I profusely apologized, and after we settled things, my friends were getting worried. I tried, again, to defend Ed. Ed was convinced that my friends were being overprotective and that they always sided with me even when I was wrong, and he said it so much that he even convinced me it was true. So much to the point I actually got angry at my friends for criticizing Ed. I tried really hard to get Ed and my other friends to get along, but he kept being argumentative, even when they were being civil with him. At one point, it seemed like he was making me choose between my IRL friends and him, which scared me. The Pokecord incident was the cherry on top of the sundae for me, and that's when I knew, on some level, that I had to cut him off. March 2019. Me and Ed are friends again for the time being and sharing a Discord server as administrators. I was concerned that Ed was being too controlling, and sure enough, Ed would constantly take things into his own hands and change things around, upsetting and confusing some people. I had added a feature called Pokecord, which was a bot that let you do battles and catch Pokemon on Discord. In a desperate attempt to fix an issue, Ed had gotten rid of Pokecord altogether, basically telling me I could reinstate it at the start of the month. One of Ed's friends, Kenny, who is not in the know and seems saddened by the news of Pokecord's disappearance, I posted a sad emoji as to express that I understood the disappointment some people felt about it being gone. Ed interpreted this one emoji as throwing him under the bus and vilifying him, and just generally reading way too much into it. Once again, interpreting something mundane and inconsequential as being the worst possible betrayal. He claimed that the previous server we had was handled poorly, and that he had concerns that the rules were not strictly enforced. Well, I had mistakenly reinstated it a day earlier than Ed had intended, and he freaked out yet again. I began self-loathing and became depressed at this stage for my error, to which Ed reacted to my anguish by accusing me of playing the victim and being sheltered. At one point, I said something along the lines of, "I'd rather be dead than you all alone with no friends." Not the best phrasing, but the meaning behind the words was what Ed was beating himself up, and I wanted him to know that I cared, so I'd rather die than have him end up alone. He interpreted this as me trying to kill myself. I admit, I have been suicidal before, but me expressing those thoughts was never an attempt to manipulate anyone. Ed seems to be convinced that it was, though. Being vulnerable with him was a mistake, I guess. He phrases it as a suicide threat, and claims that I was only doing it because I didn't get my way, when that couldn't be further from the truth. He sends me images of him cutting his arm. His justification was that it would show me how bad self-harm is. But he didn't need to do that. Anyway, we decided that it was best if we both walked away from the situation and talk about it when things are less heated. At this point, my partner and some of my friends were able to distract me for a while, and as a result, I was feeling a lot better about myself. With a clearer mind and wanting to inform IRL friends that I was going to be okay, I went to Facebook and posted the following status: "It's nice to finally feel relaxed again. Looking forward to the next few days of fun and good vibes." I had a pretty big weekend planned, and I was actually looking forward to something nice for once. A pleasant distraction from all the negativity that had been clouding my mind for so long. Ed would swiftly reply, "After what you did to me last night, I don't find that fair. I know this isn't the best thing to say, but you threw me under the bus and ruined it so much. You made me cut myself, you made me relapse in over drinking, and you made me feel like I can't do anything responsible without being vilified." Again, I didn't make Ed do anything. All I said was that I was worried Ed was being a bit too controlling and that it made me uncomfortable. But it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. I was going to support you and try and let things recover, but you had to make that whole "my life is fucking awesome" post that I could see right after you did what you did that led me to cut myself and relapse into drinking for you. I've even tried to handle things like an adult with you, but you've made it so impossible that nothing can be solved like an adult. You have zero tact, zero responsibility, zero compassion, and so far you've only shown me you care about yourself and not others, and all that matters to you is popularity, not integrity or morality. With all this, how can I trust you? The last post you made on Facebook threw everything away. I didn't post on Facebook how good things got or how awesome things would be after our incident, like you did originally. I posted I was upset so people knew how to approach me. But you just wanted positive attention without integrity. You wonder why I can't trust you anymore? Your last post made me feel more betrayed than ever. You have zero respect, so in return, I showed the same to you. Call it hypocritical if you want, but I knew what it was going in when I posted it to you. You don't seem to care about what you said at all in that post with any acknowledgement. You're not the same kind-hearted, integral person I originally saw you and knew you to be. You're more selfish and apathetic than the good-natured person you used to be. Now all you want is your ego stroked, as I see, so I don't see how I could trust you. 4. Debunking the accusations. There's a lot to unpack here. For some of you that might be reading, you might think I've left something out, but that's literally all it took to push Ed over the edge into becoming abusive, hostile, and vitriolic. And as you could see, his language is carefully crafted to manipulate the reader into thinking something worse happened than it actually did. I'm sorry that me trying to cheer myself up during a horrible time offended you so much, but the world does not revolve around you. The fact Ed continues to try and use this one status against me to this day is very telling. People can have a good time with their personal lives separate from you. You try to act as if this is evidence of me not caring about you, not giving you a spare thought, but it's the opposite. What you're effectively saying here is you wish trauma and distress on another human being. You don't want them to feel better. You want other people to suffer because you're suffering. This isn't toxic positivity, as you call it. Toxic positivity is forcing someone to have a positive attitude when they're not happy. I was actually starting to genuinely feel a little bit better, but you crushed that. I can understand how in his state of mind he twisted things, but once again, he's attributing malicious intent where there is none. He would go on to self-harm a second time, this time sending me pictures of him cutting his face. He also sent this picture to my partner in an attempt to get him to show the pictures to me, and when my partner wouldn't, he'd email them to me from a new email address. The first time he sent me pictures of cuts on his arms to allegedly show me how bad self-harm was, and the second time he sent me pictures of cuts on his face to signify, and I quote, that I was dead to him. It's like he'd come up with any reason he could to blame me for the stuff he was doing to himself. After I dissociated with him and blocked him on social media, he would start sending me harassing emails repeatedly. He'd blame me for his drinking and his cutting. He'd call me names. He'd say I was dead to him. He'd hurl abuse after abuse at me. He'd tell a warped version of events to his friends to make me look like the bad guy. Whenever I blocked one of his email addresses, he'd make another email address. When he saw I wasn't responding to his email harassment, he'd donate a couple cents to me on PayPal so they could continue to send harassing messages through PayPal. He'd do anything he could to scare me into silence. Everything that I was afraid would happen if I cut off Ed ended up happening, but I was trying to move on with my life. I thought if I could just move on and put Ed out of my mind, he would eventually do the same, but he didn't. He continued his harassment for a very, very long time. One day, I vented on Facebook about the situation, and my friend, Harley, reached out offering to message Ed with a sort of revenge. Please keep in mind, Ed had been relentlessly attacking me over the aforementioned incidents for months by this point, so I was exhausted and desperate for it to stop. Harley's prank would have involved setting up a fake profile for Ed on a gay dating site, a very 4chan-like prank. At the time, I was too emotionally unstable and upset to care, so I agreed. Anything to get him to stop the abuse. Ed has a screenshot of this exchange, and it's his only proof that I'm a vile person he claims I am. Something ripped out of context during a moment of vulnerability. I shouldn't have even considered it for a second. I never went through with it. I stopped Harley from doing it. It disgusts me and goes against my values as an LGBT+ person. It is because of this one screenshot he refuses to respect my pronouns or refer to me as non-binary, which gives me major dysphoria. Shortly after these incidents, most of the members of the GameToon Zone and some of Ed's closest friends dissociated with him for their own reasons. His girlfriend broke up with him due to feeling similar pressure from him, despite explicitly telling him that she wasn't comfortable voice acting. I would elaborate further, but those are not my stories to tell and have little to do with me. So that's my story. Ed wants me to take responsibility for a lot of things that boil down to misunderstandings at best, and at worst, intentional misrepresentations on his part. It's hard to know if he genuinely believes what he's saying to be true, or if he's intentionally lying about these things to cause drama. It doesn't matter either way, the result is the same regardless. The year is 2021 now. He is still saying awful racist and transphobic stuff on Twitter, comparing anyone he doesn't like to Trump, getting annoyed over gender diversity in Splatoon 3, etc. 2 years after I last properly spoke to him, and it's only now I've really been able to process what an awful manipulative person he is and was. I did so much for him, I left him like he was my own family. I did everything I could to be his friend, but he was never happy, and nothing I did was ever enough. He calls me selfish, he calls me childish, he calls me all sorts of vile things. At the end of the day, it's all projection. He cannot accept that he's the one who actually needs to take accountability and move on. You can't scrub the internet clean of your past, but if you just focus on the things that make you happy, you'll be better in the grand scheme of things. Despite his repeated claims that he's taken responsibilities for his actions, and I have not, he's not actually taking any real responsibility for the harm he's caused and only continues to cause harm to people that want nothing to do with him, baiting them into responding to drama he started from years ago, and when they simply state facts, he plays victim. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to act as though I haven't screwed up a lot myself. But the way Ed treats me and his other friends is not deserved. Since going on medication, moving house, and surrounding myself with better people, I'm living a much happier life. All I want for Ed is to do the same. Focus on your passions, create content, surround yourself with people like you. As much as I am hurt and traumatized by him, a part of me definitely still cares. A part of me wishes the best for him, and a part of me just wants him to be happy. I never intended to hurt Ed or upset him. I really did care for him. But I am none of the things he claims I am, and I'm not catering to his unreasonable demands anymore. This person really claims he's a mental health advocate, but he abused and traumatized me and many others. And when he talks about mental health, it's always always exclusively in the context of his own, and not of mental health in general. I wanted to express my experiences in full and tell others affected that you are not alone. Be careful who you talk to and meet online. I thought I was smart and knew about internet safety from a young age, but I was wrong. I want people, especially teenagers, to please take all this stuff about cyberbullying and internet safety seriously. I don't want anyone to end up in the same situation. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Even if the person is your best friend, if they start showing red flags like being abusive, entitled, or creepy, even in subtle ways, and especially if they are much older than you, get out of there as soon as you can. That is all for now. I am happy to answer any questions about all of this. I'm not going to be intimidated into silence, and Ed can defend himself on personal platforms all he likes. He doesn't have power over me anymore. Now here's to hoping Ed can live, learn, and move forward from this. I know I will too, and escape the abyss. Okay, so now that I've read you that document on Spax, I'm aware that there were no screenshots in it. That is because I'm going to get to some of those screenshots now. I reached out to Dwayne or Nikuala. It's the same person if you didn't figure that out already. Now, I want to start by saying that, as mentioned in the document, Spax is basically an entire decade older than Nikuala. Nikuala was only 15 years old, and Spax was in his 20s when he confessed feelings for them. Spax ended up quote-unquote dating Nikuala once they turned 16. Now, I put dating in quotes because Nikuala didn't even want to be with him, but felt too afraid to say no. Plus, I consider any adult-minor relationship not an actual relationship for obvious reasons. This is what Nikuala had to say when I asked. I don't know, it did feel pressuring, but it's hard to say. I guess I was just too nice and didn't know how to tell him no because I was scared. Nikuala also provided me screenshots of Spax admitting to this relationship and showing concern over the age gap. I'm going to read those for you now. Shit, it's a Japanese game. Also, I dated you when you were 16, so meh. Then again, I dated Yukiko in Persona 4, and she's 16. So I guess to me, it's just a video game. I don't know. Either way, derp, I'm not criticizing you. I would just be a hypocrite too. There's no sexual story in Persona, well, certain themes, but not full-on sex. I just checked the age of consent where you are. 16 is the legal age. That's in Victoria, right? Yes. Okay, I guess I still can't believe I forgot. I don't know. I think I confessed feelings to you when you were 15 actually, but didn't really try dating and such until 16 due to being raised where 16 is legal. And on that stuff, I am not comfortable on those grounds until then. The only thing I don't want mentioned is the love triangle part. Other than that, you are good to post about me, so yes, you do have my permission. Without mentioning that, may I mention we dated for a little bit when you were coming of age, without mentioning Jonah? I don't know, not everyone knows about us dating at one point, so I'm not really sure on that one being mentioned publicly, sorry. Well, I want to be sure it was a coming of age thing, but say it was short-lived. I can say you broke up with me as part of it, if you wish. I'm just not comfortable with the relationship side of things being mentioned publicly. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't upset you or anything. I'm not upset, I completely understand. I could be the same way with some people, so no worries, I'll leave it out. Spax's rationale is that the age of consent is 16 where Nikuala resided, so it was okay to date them when he himself was in his mid-20s. Obviously, this is objectively disgusting, and I don't find it acceptable at all. Something else I'd like to say in regards to this document and these screenshots is a warning to minors. Do not take on the burdens of adults' issues, even if they're not sexual in nature. Having to hear an adult suicide bait or vent about their issues can cause a lot of long-lasting mental damage. Adults should not be venting to children. I understand in creator spaces, adults and minors sometimes are friends, but those friendships need extra boundaries. On top of needing to be non-sexual, non-romantic in nature, the adult should not be venting or putting their issues on kids at all. The adult can go vent to someone their own age. It's alright to tell them you had a bad day and stuff like that, but maybe don't vent about your suicidal thoughts and failed relationships to a minor, you know? And if you are a minor and an adult is speaking to you like that, you should probably cut them off for your own well-being. So I was watching others' videos on Spax before I made this video to just kind of get a general idea of the types of things I should cover, and I'm sure I did not cover every little controversy because there's a lot, which is why I'm going to link other people's videos that go in depth in other things I haven't talked about. I'm going to have this comment read.
Thank you, Dylan. The victims finally have justice after so long of so much grief and pain they went through mentally. I was a victim of Ed's for a short amount of time. My personal information was exposed online at one point by him many years ago, using self-harm / manipulation to his advantage. The fact that he was getting many others I knew involved, and even acquaintances I knew as well, into his unnecessary drama. The truth is, I cared about Ed like a brother at one point in my life, and tried my best to get him help by sending him resources / services to help him. But he was not mentally ready, and his mother is also to blame for keeping him sheltered. To this day, I still wish him the best, that one day he will get the mental help he needs, before it's too late for him and when his mother does pass. I don't wish anyone to go through the hardships of losing anyone, even my worst enemies. I've grown over these 3 years, and today I no longer wish to stay silent. If there is one thing that this video did help, it was bringing a new community together, that mental abuse does exist online, that we don't have to fear anymore, that we can make a brand new start and by moving on to better things in life. You've always been a mental health advocate in my eyes, and today this proves you are one. I had no doubts that 3 years ago you would be a successful content creator over time, and today you proved that. Thank you, Dylan, for everything.
So I decided to reach out to Roxie and had a conversation, and she sent me a document she wrote for me to read here for you guys. There are some graphic images in the document, so I'm going to be censoring those for the sake of yourselves and the sake of this YouTube video not getting taken down. My name is Roxie Reyes. My original name was Rosebud from 2008 to 2019. A guy that goes by the name Ed Prince Stairs, voice actor / Spax3, went way too far with me. To give a bit of background history, I met him back in the beginning of 2019 on social media. When I met him, things seemed pretty good between the both of us. He was also friends with my current boyfriend, Art Hammond. I couldn't have been happier to make a new friend like him. The friendship seemed to be going well, but then I started to notice a few things that seemed very different from most people. Well, for starters, I didn't expect him to talk to me a lot. It was new to me since I haven't seen someone as dedicated as to want to call up a lot. I didn't mind it at first, but I think what may have made me start thinking was when I noticed how long his conversations would go on sometimes. 3 to 6 hours long. I know there were a couple of situations where he got a little upset that I was an hour late. I did explain to him that I had things to attend to, and I did apologize, something he would hold on to for a pretty long time. Then I was introduced to more of his friends over time, like Mike Maverick, Ray Harrell, Kristani, Ed's ex-girlfriend, and so on. I would always listen and observe how he talked to his friends and how he would treat them. Sometimes he would be nice to them, and other times he acted a bit harsh. But again, I didn't know him too well, so I couldn't really make any decisions back then what to think of him. The more I got to know him, the more I became close to him and started opening up more. He then had brought up to me a lot of his past ex-friends. It was alright to hear it once in a while, but then I noticed he wouldn't stop talking about Nikuala Kuma, Nima, Angry Max, Mulder Yuffie, Prince of Moose, Chris Chan, Big L, all these people that I had no clue about. Everything seemed pretty good at the beginning of the first 3 months, but then it started to get rocky in one situation we had. I don't really remember how we got into a conflict together, but I do remember he did end up showing me that he cut himself online on a Skype call. I was shocked and decided to screenshot this very quickly, in case I needed to tell someone that he has suicidal tendencies and that he really does this in his real life. I know I had to leave the call and take my medication to calm myself down. To be honest, I probably should have seen this as a red flag to begin with and probably should have left him, but I decided I needed to get a break from him for a short time. We eventually got back as friends and put it in the past. I think what may have made me start to think more about his mental health state was when I noticed that Spax was not being very understanding towards his ex-girlfriend's feelings that one night on Skype. While I was on a Skype call, I had overheard about Ed wanting his girlfriend to lose weight to fit a cosplay outfit. This didn't seem normal whatsoever, to ask a girlfriend to do that. What was concerning was the fact that Kristen was trying her hardest to tell Ed she really didn't want to do voice acting. Even I could notice this, but Ed kept on pursuing this. This was probably one of the biggest reasons that led to their breakup down the line. Even after the breakup, I just couldn't understand why he didn't take my advice to begin with. When I told him that pressuring her to do voice acting and losing weight was not a great thing to do or to say, it was just making her uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong, I did feel sympathy for him and I understood about breakups and how hard they could be. I just couldn't understand what was wrong with him. None of this was normal, or why he wasn't listening, taking my advice. Didn't seem to care for his ex-girlfriend's feelings, just making excuses for his selfish actions. It never made any sense. Then things started to get worse. He went through some very bad mood swings, and his mental health seemed like it was getting worse. He wouldn't listen to his friends for advice, and it was not good. This also led to Ray Harrell ending their friendship with Ed as well. There was a time right after Ed's breakup with his ex-girlfriend, I was invited on a Discord call with Mike Maverick and Spax, because I was interested in volunteering for SAG. Spax on the other hand, was insisting to Mike that he could work for him and help him with his videos. Mike, I could tell, was caught off guard by this and felt a bit pressured. Just from observing the call, Mike did say yes, but it seemed like Spax was pushing this without thinking, forgetting that this is Mike's stream and video content. Controlling patterns seemed to get worse by Spax. Unfortunately, this led to a bad ending between Mike Maverick and Spax3. There are some archives linked here that have to do with that I'm not going to go into, but I will link in the description for you guys to check out yourself if you're curious on the Mike and Spax falling out. When the live stream was going on, I was actually very unaware of what was going on. Considering I was doing something else at the time, I think I was just supposed to be observing the whole live stream as a moderator that day, but I couldn't. Afterwards, things just went downhill, and that's when Mike Maverick broke ties with Spax. And after reviewing the video stream, I could see why that happened. Mike was having a hard time trying to speak up and trying to tell Spax that he wanted to speak his mind and his thoughts on the Nintendo Direct. And Ed, on the other hand, was not listening, being mindful of Mike's stream. Again, a controlling behavioral issue you can clearly see of Ed that wasn't normal. And also, to be clear about this, I was trying to stay neutral between Mike and Ed during this time. I felt like it was very unnecessary to choose sides back then. One day, there was this group that was made by Mike Maverick, and I was invited to it. When I got introduced to Nikolala Kuma, Mermaid Kitty, over Discord by Mike Maverick. I got the time to get to know them, I heard about them and what their story was. I started to get a better idea of what was going on and why Spax always kept mentioning them many times. It didn't take me too much longer to see that Spax has an obsession issue, and that you can clearly tell by him repetitively bringing up past ex-friends and finding out that there were harassment messages sent to Nikolala Kuma from him. As you get my side of the story, the whole picture you see here was leaked out. Spax ended up seeing this, leading him to blocking me for the first time. From what I was hearing from Art Haman, he was having a psychotic meltdown when he found out I was in the DM group. My reasons for saying this will never change. I was someone that was trying to be neutral and trying to be understanding.
Anything, it should be removed. I'm sure people will simply ignore his false information because everything he says is not 100% accurate. I do want you to know that no matter how hard things get right now, you have friends like us that care deeply about you. Hugs. Maybe some rest will help, but do please never think you're a bad person. You have a heart, care about your friends, you're a lot nicer and understand. And that's what matters, is being a good person that respects others' feelings. Heart. I hope this helps, and we're here for you. Thanks. Also, another thing. I'm sick of Ed calling me a woman. I am not a woman. I am non-binary. It's people like him that give me major dysphoria of being expected to be the perfect girl. Fuck that. I'm not his doll. My friend Harley is going to take care of him because she saw my Facebook status and wanted to do something about him, so yeah. Yep, he's screwed. This is what's going to happen, but it must stay here. 1. Make dating profile as him. 2. Make the most hilarious and sad description of him. 3. Hit up a bunch of guys with his IM, email, Facebook, everything, so he gets welcomed to guys wanting his flabby ass.
Not everything he says is 100% accurate. Of course, by hearing Ed and them out, you can clearly tell that there were two sides to the story and a lot of info is missing. So his side wasn't 100% accurate, and that was the biggest reason why I sent the DM message. You're a lot nicer. My reasons for saying Nikolala Kuma is a lot nicer. Because of the fact that they were willing to listen, hear everyone out, that they did care for Ed, but it was his mental health that killed their friendship between the two of them. While still being blocked from Ed, I was also hearing from Art Hammond that Ed was claiming this was a hate group. I find that to be inaccurate. It was more certain people that had encountered Ed in the past that were trying to vent their frustrations out, that they were unable to because Ed made them feel either uncomfortable. I feel like another reason why he had the psychotic breakdown was probably because he didn't expect me to find out the truth from other people I was being introduced to over time, and he took things out of context without contacting me and asking what was happening. I believe it was sometime a month later or so that my boyfriend had contacted me that Spax3 wanted to talk things out with me. I agreed to it, since I did want to hear him out. I also did apologize to him for any misunderstandings that he might not have understood. being his friend once again. I know somewhere around this time, before or after, was when Dylan was doing the interview for Ed for his YouTube channel. One thing that was mentioned in the video was Ed mentioning a mediator. The mediator was actually me. I was pretty much the one that was hearing the whole entire conversation between the two of them. It was a very interesting experience, but I won't go into it too much detail. That's for another day. And if you're wondering what this link is, I'm not sure either, because it links to a dead video. Getting back to what I was talking about, he started to show his true colors. He was definitely showing signs of having racist tendencies that clearly his ex-girlfriend had mentioned to him not to do. Drinking alcohol habits started getting a lot worse, and he started using that as an excuse for the behavioral issues he was having. He was bringing up stuff from the past that was already over, and I thought we had moved on from. He was definitely trying to divide Mike and I when I was clearly just trying to be neutral on both sides. His mother, Janelle, and him started having more arguments down the line. I had suggested to Ed that maybe he search for assistance with housing, since he was eligible to live on his own with the assistance he gets paid monthly. I sent him an email and made sure to give him sources to get him some housing, that it might help him get some independence out there and he might be able to find some mental health as well. Not too long afterwards, his mother sent Ed to go get ice cream down the road. His mother wanted to talk to me personally and privately. She thought it would not be a good idea for him to get housing because of the fact that he only receives little and that he is still mentally a child. The only thing I didn't understand is that there are clearly disability waivers for him to get on that could help him. This seemed more of his mother not wanting to let him experience the world out there, possibly because she's also getting assistance as well and needs his assistance to cover for the place they live at currently. She had also mentioned to me personal stuff about his background and diagnosis. She mentioned about him suffering from a psychotic disorder probably known as schizophrenia. Don't take my word on all this, but this is what I can remember since it has been many years. Some of this was pretty sad to hear, but at the same time it was no excuse to keep him in and not let him experience what the world's like. I went along with hearing her out, but some of the stuff I will not agree with. Even so, I don't think Ed pursued this just because of his mother's influence, and he didn't think that much about it afterwards. The last thing I remembered is that his manipulative tendencies started showing up more than normal when he started to ask me to do voice acting from him. He was bringing up past situations that happened between him, and that it would be forgiven if I did this or that. I remember him admitting that he was trying to be manipulative just to get me to join voice acting, which told me that he is very aware that he has behavioral issues and that he uses this to his advantage to control people easily, but won't change anything to help himself. The final straw came on this date, October 10th, 2019. I was working on a Photoshop project, I knew it was due, and I had to get it done before a deadline. I was also watching a live stream with my boyfriend since this was the first time in so long that we did something together. I even let Ed know in advance that I couldn't take calls that day, that I didn't want to get involved in any drama, and that this would be the last time I helped him out being the messenger for Nicoella, Kuma, and him. Keep in mind, I also told him over a private Skype call days or weeks before that I didn't want to get involved with the Mike and Ed situation. Well, he didn't listen to what I typed and kept calling me non-stop. He kept repetitively messaging me in chat. It wasn't until I had to tell him nicely that Art Hammond and I don't want to be involved in the Nicoella Kuma situation anymore. He said, "No deal," and called me again. I had no choice but to block Ed on Discord/social media because he didn't listen to me, nor was he respecting my boyfriend's wishes as well. He didn't seem to understand that my boyfriend was getting stressed out from the whole Mike and Nicoella Kuma situation, and that he was putting him in the middle of all this, and this was not good for his mental health. I just did not appreciate it, and for him to not listen to me, it was the last straw. I also just needed space, and that maybe when the whole drama between everyone else was over, that maybe he and I could go back to being friends, and that things could go back to the way they once were. Well, unfortunately, that never happened.
Hey Ed, I can only type today since soon Allie and I's show will be coming on. Nicola does have one last final message she told me to send it to you. But after this, I'm done being the burn messenger because I gotta get back to work on my video editing and Photoshop today. Take your time to read this. The reason I didn't want to talk to you as I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want my mental health messing up. I'm not asking forgiveness. I'm not asking for friendship again. I'm asking for all this to stop, for me to be in peace, for me to move on with my life. I only self-reflected for my own reasons and for me to change as a person for myself from all this. I really don't think a final talk was gonna make things better, because no matter what I say or do, I'll always be seen as a quote-unquote psychopath. So to be honest, I feel like nothing I'll say or do will matter anyway. Me fighting back or defending myself publicly or privately won't solve anything either. The best thing I have to do is what I've always been told for ages. Just ignore and move on and walk away. I know I did the wrong things. I know I messed up. and I'm sorry for them. But I can't dwell on them or feel bad for the rest of my life. I don't want this haunting me forever. Just keep moving forward and focus on the now and the future.
No deal. She talks to me or I end her. I'm sick of her selfishness and cowardice, and I have enough evidence to make my case. She's hurt me too much, so we settle this, or she has no future. She wants peace, she ruined all of mine, so no, she will talk, or I will expose her. I'm done being nice or fair. I'm crying every day, and I can't take it anymore, so this shit gets settled one way or another.
I'm doing a project right now, but yeah, like I told you, she said no. She won't talk to you. May as well just move on and just make your videos since you plan on doing it. Well, show is starting now, and that means I'm going to watch the show with Allie.
Not happening. I'm going to force her into a chat if I have to. She's lost the privilege to have a choice. She lost her privileges a long time ago. I told Ali about this as well. She does this, or she's ended. Also call, I'm on the phone.
I know, and him and I talked. Look, we both don't want to get in the middle of this. I'm asking nicely if Allie and I didn't get involved with the Nicola situation. I know you're feeling upset, but she said no. We can't do anything else. I'm sorry you're going through a lot, my friend. Again, I wish you the best. I gotta get back to my work.
No deal.
It wasn't until I found out by Bradford that my boyfriend had sent some voicemail messages to Ed, and things turned from calm to worse. I'll let my boyfriend explain what the voicemail messages he sent to Ed were about.
Also, I sent like 3 voice messages, and it was just being silly for the most part, by singing a song and making pot shots. And the last time I sent him a voice message, it was to basically tell him to heck off and quit harassing his ex-girlfriend already. Yet I'm the bad guy. And keep in mind, before his meltdown, where he kept screaming over another person that he won't stop obsessing over, that I'm not naming for their safety, and then threatening to kill himself, I was the nicest guy to him until I got fed up with him pulling me into his petty drama. Oh, and FYI, the last time I was in call with him, he threatened to sick rapists and murderers to a friend of both mine and Mike's. And then around the same time, threatened to kill himself with some alcohol and pills. I wouldn't be surprised if, as we speak, he's talking about me right now and thinking of the ways to kill me or get back at me. I mean, at one point, he threatened to release the nudes of his ex-girlfriend, someone with severe anxiety issues, who also has panic attacks, as revenge.
I even remember telling my boyfriend that I don't condone these voicemail messages one bit and that could have been handled better. But since time has gone by, I have gotten to have a better understanding that my boyfriend has always had a hard time trying to tell him certain things of how he felt and that Ed would just not listen. Instead, Ed would have meltdowns and start screaming, and this would affect my boyfriend's sensitive hearing. As my boyfriend has told him many times that he has this condition, then Ed has chose not to listen. It's no wonder my boyfriend outburst that day because Ed chose not to hear him out and ignored him.
Your boyfriend made harassing phone calls, he posted personal information to someone who didn't do so to him on Twitter. Me and Kenny don't feel safe with people associated with this person. On the grounds of Ed, yes, he made a stupid mistake while drunk of all things and threatening Nicole, but you really don't seem to understand how much pain he's been in from the betrayal and lies from her and others. Unlike Ellie, Mike, and Nicole and the like, Ed has shown a lot of disgust in himself and what he has said, and he at least didn't act upon his threat. Ellie and Mike have been acting upon everything, and those phone calls Ellie did just seal everything. Please do not contact me or Kenny again. Good day.
This brings me to Bradford's message. After replying back in a civil matter the first time, it was only a few hours later I found out from an anonymous friend that sent me screenshots of what Ed said about me online. From reading the tweets, they were posted 4 days ago, and I was not happy one bit.
Slept, woke up, I'm still feeling fine. This shows it wasn't a momentary thing. I really do feel better, so I need to enjoy this while it lasts. I have good friends, 2 good places to do work, and I've gotten the toxics out of my life, and I hope I can be less toxic myself for it. Holy crap, I'm amazed how much better I feel now. I haven't felt this good in months. While I still have some stuff left to settle, I feel so much happier now, and it's still all thanks to a jackass I thought was my friend, and his favoritism, his insensitive girlfriend, and more. OMG, yes. One more thing, Mikey. Thank you. I misjudged you recently on an incident, and you proved to me I was wrong about doing that with you, and I am grateful, if not for you. I won't feel so much better now about this incident. Hell, you doing this is actually making me feel better and less depressed about the whole thing, so you're helping me more than hurting me. I know who my real friends are now and who to put my trust in, and I made the wrong choice with you. Thank you. End of line. If you want to know how ashamed I am of my meltdown, I tried to kill myself 2 nights ago. No joke. My depression, anxiety, and others can be a major curse. I'm not proud of it, so I feel more confident than ever that losing you and your hurtful girlfriend is for the best. TBC.
I made sure to tell Bradford to let Ed know to stop harassing me, and that was it. I was moving on. Things go good for months without anything being mentioned about me, so I thought for sure things are starting to calm down. It wasn't until today, April 7th, 2020, that I found out that my full name and username was exposed to the public on Twitter, that is now claiming / assuming that I agreed to those voicemails and that I agree with everything my boyfriend says.
Ali Almethan, aka Ard Hammond, on the night I had a drunk meltdown due to someone lying about how she was ashamed of her actions and I wanted to end the pain that she caused to me. He sent a voicemail to my phone on how suicide is painless. Due to the time that was, the exact words of suicide being painless, and the next day, he sent me another harassing voicemail with the paedophile stuff when he knows someone in my family was a victim of this and how much I hate it. But here's the sick thing. And how he is lying, saying this was taken out of context, when due to both of these voicemails back to back, the wording in them, and when they happened overall, there's no other context to take them. True cowards will lie their way out of anything. Not to mention, he claims to be a victim of family abuse, that yet he insulted family abuse of a friend of mine, so if he really is a legit victim of this, it makes it all the more sick of what he did. However, I heard he came from money, so he likely doesn't know true abuse. And with this, his girlfriend, aka, has been deceptive as well and has supported everything Ali did, so unless that changes, I would not go near her as well. I don't want people being hurt by Ali or those in his circle. I've done a lot of things I've regretted, some drunk, some sober, some enraged, some not as much, but the thing is, I do regret those. Ali regrets nothing and he justifies the unjustifiable instead of showing regret. That's true toxicity. End of line. I did not do this as coherently as I would have liked, but I was tired and more. But it's done well enough that it gets the point across.
I was beyond shocked that he did something like this to tell people about how I'm deceptive. I'm not a liar, I'm a blunt and an honest person, but I guess that's his take on me. The pretty big sad thing about all of this is he mainly projecting himself, seeing how insensitive and hurtful you are towards my boyfriend and everyone. Having these false beliefs, using manipulation, lying to your close friends, and assuming everyone is out to get you. It was all in his head. For Ed to put out my personal information on Twitter that employers could look up with a simple Google search, showing me that he cut himself live on video footage, using manipulation as his way to control people, this is not normal behavior. He clearly needs help. Roxie Reyes, I loved you like a brother, Ed. After reading those tweets of what you said about me publicly, you broke my heart, Ed, and that alone killed me inside. It brought me to tears thinking how much I spent helping you out on your personal issues, housing, mental health, watching cartoons together online, everything crushed in a matter of minutes. This was a statement I made a long time ago, a few years back in 2020. This probably will never get to him, or he probably will never comprehend that I wish for him to have a better mental health in future. As I say this again, there are consequences for your actions. This document will always remain here forever for anyone that wants to read my story. There will be people like this online that will try to use these tactics on certain people in real life and online. My suggestion would just be to leave immediately or try to get them mental help. If they refuse help, it's not your fault. They are responsible for their own actions and mental well-being. There's nothing more I can say at this moment, but to always take care of yourself. So once again, we're seeing a lot of the recurring themes here: obsession with voice acting, the entitlement to time, self-harm as a manipulation tactic, inability to take criticism, obsession, and vindictiveness. This isn't just a lolcow anymore. This is someone who has actively caused serious harm to multiple people. With a lot of the more serious things already discussed, for the remainder of the video, at least until I get to where he is now, the section in the end, I'd like to go over some more general Spax crust to just lighten the mood for a little bit. What I mean by this is just miscellaneous but notable cringe moments. The first one is actually something I glossed over earlier, which is Spax trauma dumping on a VTuber stream.
Actually, I'm saying this right now so you understand something. I was threatened death last night. Someone put me into fucking legal trouble.
Whoa. Okay, now that's something you should
Guess what? You're gonna kick me out and you're gonna do it over a stupid joke? Well,
okay,
guess what?
Now you're just...
I am in legal trouble and...
Oh my goodness. Okay, guys. Yeah, that was very uncalled for. That's something that should be said in DMs, not in a personal...
This is crazy. Imagine being in legal trouble and your first thought is, yeah, let me go on someone else's chill stream and just scream about it. That's really normal. In another video, you can see Spax having a complete and total freak out over Sonic voice actors once again.
Go ahead. I'd be willing to take it on with you. anyone who has a gripes with me just because of my fucking opinion, because of how I fucking feel, and because I'm fucking frustrated, because all you fucking idiots who have your dick stuck in a picture of Ryan with a little mouth hole cut open, who are just going, Ryan, 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 call for Ryan only, don't call for anyone else. I mean, we don't care about, I care about the voices, I care about the characters, but only Ryan should voice Sonic. Yes. Guardian Earth, fuck you. Yamato Bushi, fuck you. And Kaiser Webb, fuck you most of all. I'm sick of all of you.
This stuff is golden, holy shit. It's actually insane how much he cares about the dumbest stuff on the planet. It's sad, really. The next clip is gonna introduce you to a whole other area of crust.
Now he's trying to dug up the whole 10-year drama crap, which still, by the way, is completely irrelevant from this whole...
No, it's not!
Just wait.
Ed?
Mike,
I told you to stop saying it's irrelevant.
Just stop. Mike, didn't you bring up Ed wanting to screw Cream and Shantae?
Yeah, you know Cream the Rabbit, the kid from Sonic? Spax is down bad for her. I'm choosing not to show his other weird shit with Cream and bondage in this video because I'm just not gonna do that, okay? Here's Spax having a Keemstar Blog TV moment, and you can probably guess the word that I had to censor here.
She just showed favoritism towards a who basically lies and is trying to basically make himself famous with no regard for how he hurts other people. And no, I don't care what you say about me using the N-word. This one man, I've earned that on.
Yeah, Spax really doesn't like black people. He has had a lot of out-of-pocket racist moments like this throughout his time.
Assaulted by them with a stick. They tried to either kill me or knock me out for money. We have had our house robbed, I am sure, by black people. My pets have been killed by black people. A black person. We have had our car parts stolen by them. And they keep making noise and disruption out here.
Okay.
They have no regard for neighbors. So guess what? Please,
I'm just trying to help.
Well, guess what? You need to understand where I'm coming from.
So, where is Spax today? Well, Spax is still on YouTube and DeviantArt because people like this really and truly are the cockroaches you just can't seem to get out of your walls. It's internet addiction at its finest. His content looks like it was made by a 7th grader, and getting similar views to Tipster, he hasn't managed to break 1,000 views on a video in over a year. On his DeviantArt, even as recently as this month, he is still ranting about people. People like this tend not to change, unfortunately. At the end of the day, I believe that most people can change, and I'm probably more forgiving than most for whatever reason. And when someone shows that they've changed, and unless they've done something truly irredeemable like pedophilia, I'm gonna say, okay, I'll give you another chance. Maybe I won't be your friend, but I'll let it go. But when someone shows the same pattern of behavior for nearly 2 decades, I'm gonna feel pretty confident that they're not gonna improve if they haven't improved even a smidge already. I'm aware that Spax has said he regrets certain things, like his hatred for Griffith and some of his DMCAs, and while I'd like to say that's hopefully a step in the right direction, those controversies truly pale in comparison to the other things he's done, some of which are far more recent as well. Countless times, people far kinder than I am have attempted to help him get his shit together, and time after time, he lashed out at them in response. Spax, if you're watching, I'd once again like to remind you that I'm a copyright law student, so I suggest you don't strike this video unless you want to find yourself on the losing end of a court case. Many YouTubers may not have the resources to escalate things, but I sure do. Normally, I'd give advice to the subject of a video like this, but I feel like the people that left you already gave you the same advice that I'd give you. So I say, if you want advice, if you want to take away from this video, go back and read those documents of the people you hurt, because honestly, they gave you the best advice they could. I've had several people help with research on this video, voice lines, and several sources that I've used for information that can all provide more context, as well as an archive to some of Spax's moments on archive.org. So all of that will be linked in the description if you're curious about learning more. Feel free to leave a like or comment if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you like niche internet lore videos, games, cartoons, legal drama, or kinda whatever else I feel like talking about on a particular day. and I will catch you on the flip side.